Look at a map of the Middle East. Right where the Persian Gulf meets the open ocean, you'll find a single, unavoidable bottleneck. The Strait of Hormuz is incredibly narrow, spanning just 30 to 35 kilometers, serving as the only natural outlet. That tight gap carries 20% of the world's daily oil supply to international markets. There is also a significant agricultural vulnerability here. Nearly 30% of all traded nitrogen-based fertilizers, compounds used to sustain global crop yields, originate from the nations bordering this waterway. Because of these concentrations, any blockage in this 30-kilometer gap creates a ripple effect. A disruption here triggers an immediate shockwave across both global energy prices and food supplies. This vulnerability isn't a modern accident. It's the result of a permanent geographic trap that existed long before the modern states currently lining the coast. For over 5,000 years, anyone trading between Mesopotamia, the Arabian Peninsula, and the Indian Ocean has been funneled through this same narrow corridor. To understand the volatility of the modern strait, we have to look at how this unyielding geography has dictated the survival of empires for millennia. In the early Bronze Age, merchants from Mesopotamian cities like regularly sailed these waters. They were searching for copper, timber, and diorite from Oman and lands further to the east. This created a funnel effect. While land empires could expand across vast territories, their maritime trade remained compressed into this single, highly predictable shipping lane. Rulers from distant lands eventually took notice. In 116 AD, the Roman Emperor Trajan reached the head of the Persian Gulf during his eastern campaigns. Trajan observed ships sailing toward the immense wealth of India, noting that every one of them had to pass through this specific gateway. It was a realization shared by many early conquerors. You didn't need to control the entire world to dominate global trade. You only needed to hold the gate. The 13th century Kingdom of Hormuz provides a clear look at the economics of a maritime choke point. The kingdom was situated on a barren island with no agricultural land. They produced virtually nothing of their own, yet they became one of the wealthiest states in the region. Their wealth came purely from their location. By acting as the clearinghouse for Eurasian spices, pearls, and silks, they grew rich by taxing every merchant forced through the funnel. Observers like Marco Polo and the Jesuit Francis Xavier described a city of immense luxury, but Xavier specifically criticized the island for its extreme moral corruption. The island became a hub of vice and cultural confusion, fueled by the hyper-concentration of wealth that came from unregulated trade. The history of Hormuz illustrates how a geographic monopoly can decouple wealth from actual production. By controlling the passage, the kingdom could exert power over international trade without creating anything themselves. This concentration of wealth eventually attracted the first distant European superpower, the Portuguese, arriving in 1507. Admiral Afonso de Albuquerque captured the island and built a military fortress, using it to control the maritime routes connecting Europe with Asia. Portuguese dominance lasted over a century, until 1622, when the Safavid Persian Empire worked with the British to forcefully expel them and shift the balance of power in the Gulf. During this era, the strait was the ultimate geopolitical prize. It demonstrated that a naval power could exert influence over the entire Asian trade network simply by occupying a 30-kilometer gap. In the 20th century, a new resource changed the stakes of the strait, moving it from a source of imperial wealth to a matter of global industrial necessity. The 1908 oil discovery in Iran began to integrate the region into the center of the global economy. After World War II, the expansion of the oil industry across the Gulf states led to a massive increase in tanker exports through the strait. This shift meant the waterway was no longer just about luxury goods or tax revenue. It had become the primary artery for the world's fuel supply. Because such a large portion of the world's energy and fertilizer passes through this single point, the consistent operation of international industry is now tied to these waters remaining open. Over 5,000 years, the empires claiming this region have changed, from the Romans and Persians to the Portuguese and the British. The cargo has changed as well, moving from Bronze Age copper and medieval spices to modern crude oil and specialized fertilizers. Yet the geography itself remains unyielding. The 30-kilometer gap is a permanent feature that cannot be bypassed or ignored. This history reveals a consistent lesson. Despite our complex global supply chains, international stability is still heavily influenced by this narrow geographic trap. Ultimately, whoever dictates the flow of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz exerts direct influence over the movement of global energy.